Well, we're here in the blistering heat of Watkins Glen, approaching 100 degrees, even at kind of tea time here in New York State. It's going to be hotter than that tomorrow for the Sahlens 6 Hours of the Glen. But we're here in, as you can see, the United Autosports Garage with the number 32 Ligier JSP 217 Gibson. It's been a mouthful, but with their young star, Phil Hanson. Phil, it's been a hell of a week so far.
Yeah.
The car's on the pace.
Yeah, we're looking good. P2 in qualifying. We have pretty good, strong race pace. This track's the most suited for the Ligier, so it should be quite good, as well as the LMP2s look quite strong here compared to the DPIs. The BOP's evened out throughout the year, and I think we'll be quite competitive.
And it's been competitive through the week. I mean, we had one of the 3 practice sessions where you're a little bit further down the list, but 4th position the other 2, and pulled the rest to just 6 thousandths of a second off pole position in that 15-minute qualifying session, and could have been very different, couldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he had a little error in his fastest lap as well, with yellow flags, I think a little bit of grass that made him lock up on the front, so I think we could have been a little bit better, but 6,000 is still pretty close.
Fantastic stuff. We're going to take a few minutes just to look over the beast, the 32 car. This is the 2017 spec car, the new LMP2 formula with the fabulous 4.2 litre V8 Gibson engine pushing out some, 600 horsepower?
Yeah, 600 horsepower, and it's a naturally aspirated V6, like you said, so it's quite powerful.
Now you don't turn 19 until next week?
Next week, yeah.
July the 5th. So 18 years old. This is another step up. The journey so far, just take us through the journey so far with your motorsport over the last few years.
Well, initially I started in karting like most youngsters these days. Unfortunately, I started quite late at 13, 14, and I won the Super 1 Championship into 2015. And then we swiftly moved into cars and went straight into GTs, which is a pretty unconventional route these days. A lot of people move into junior formula, single formulas, such as Formula Renault or Formula Ford. Yeah, it was a different route, GTs, but it was a lot more experience that way. You're paired up against a pro driver, so the data comparison is where the level you want to get to, rather than the level against your fellow competitors. And
you won a championship very early on, the Audi in Brick car?
Brick car, it was a nice little opening championship. It's not the most competitive, but it's perfect what you want. You want to come into a series and win a championship at a similar level to what you would be doing in single seaters, only you're racing up with a comparison against pro drivers.
Switch then to the Michelin Le Mans Cup with the Audi still, but then a pretty rapid change into prototypes, and this is, I'd say, the 3rd rung on that ladder for you. You've already won in P3, you've had the old style P2, and now this car. Tell us a little bit about this. What does it take for you to develop your skill set with that rapid a rise?
Yeah, it came along quite quick. Obviously, like you said, it was like within a year I was already driving the LMP2. But like you said, we went from GTs to LMP3 to LMP2, so there was a ladder there, there was stepping stones. The LMP3 was perfect for preparing myself for it. I'd never driven an aero car or a car that relied at all on aero. The GT car is virtually no aero, so I had to learn all that in LMP3, as well as no traction control, which is what you do experience, and no ABS, of course. That was the first thing you have to get used to.
Now we've got this thing. Now this is a whole different piece of kit, huge aero for these LMP2 cars. We hear a lot from guys coming from pretty lofty areas of single seaters. The kind of aero you're talking about here is pretty similar to some of the pretty high-end single seaters. The only difference is the weight. It's a heavier car. It's physically a bigger car. But tell us a little bit about adapting to what is really an aero defined package, isn't it?
Well, like in any formula of racing, you need to, the only way to adapt is by doing laps. First thing I did notice was obviously the power. Before I was able to use the aero comfortably, you do initially use the power, learn about the power and how it can, it can bite you if you abuse it. So luckily you have a driving aid, you have a TC in here, which is a good aid. It's not the best in Ligier compared to some of the competition we have out here with DPIs to be able to make their own, do their own tweaks in house. But it's still pretty good, and it gets you out of trouble when you try and go around a corner too quickly, or it'll cut in and stop you in the barrier.
So the DPI is based on the same kind of chassis. We know the Nissan engine DPI is the same chassis as this, but they're allowed to play with not just the engine, which can be factory supplied engines, but also suspension.
Yeah,
and that's a massive bonus for them at very many of these tracks. The bit I think though that most people are going to be interested in, we've seen them race, is your office, and it's what's in there. Let's have a quick look at that wheel for starters, Phil.
Yeah, let's see if we can take it off.
someone actually on the other end of that steering column.
I don't know.
I think Phil's trying not to disturb the work that's gone on the front of the car. There we go. In response to a subtle touch. Cosworth?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Cosworth make all the steering wheels in all the different cars. It's the same electronic system pretty much in all of them. The LMP2s, that is. And you start around here. These are the most frequently used buttons. That's why they're quite close to your thumbs. You've got the radio that you're using nearly every lap, and your pit limiter for every time you come in for pit stop to get fuel and tyres or driver change. These are the, I guess, not the next most used, but they can be used. Of course, yellow in Europe is an 80k limiter. Out here it's a safety car map, so you save fuel. Neutral and reverse. A drink system we have on board, so we plug in a tube into our cockpit area, like around that lights panel with all the different switches.
Look at that. I mean, how effective is that drink system? Because we hear that some of them keeps the drinks reasonably good, but in others it's basically hot water within 20 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. It does get a bit warm, but also the vibrations mean that it starts to drip down your chin as well after a while. And then moving on, you've got on the other side the flash, which you do use quite a bit to warn GT cars and slow moving cars that you're coming up for an overtake as you're lapping cars throughout the race. And then on here we have the toggles for the TC, the gain and slip, so how frequently it kicks in and how powerful the TC is, how intrusive it is when you're on the throttle. And
that's personal preference as well as track conditions?
I mean, the track's characteristics have a big effect on it. Conditions, tyre wear, that all plays a part, but again, personal preference. It depends how much you use it, how much you drive into it, and how comfortable you are with oversteer, I guess.
And through a regular stint, are you playing? I wouldn't say playing, but are you adjusting that, or do you just set it for where you want it to be and leave it there?
Well, it's track dependent and how abrasive the circuit is to tyres as well. I think here we haven't been playing with it much at all because the tyres have been pretty consistent throughout the stint. So I haven't been moving it that much. Maybe 1 or 2 clicks in the race on the slip to make it cut in a little bit more around as the tyres start to get a bit older. But at tracks that are more abrasive, such as Sebring, you are a higher setting initially, and then also you're turning up as it gets more abrasive throughout the stint.
And the toggles at the bottom?
Yeah, so here we have a chassis map, which is basically we don't really use. It's on one. I think that's actually a setting for some fuses and things, I think. Engine map, that's just, you can have fuel saving maps, you can have also different maps, lean, rich. We only really use map 1, which is just a race map. Fly-by-wire, which is basically how quickly the power comes to you.
Right.
So that's on power application. This is just basically 6 options, 6 graphs. We normally run on 4, which is a linear power application basically, and then the steer assistance, again, only 6 maps. And that's driver preference again. I personally run on 3. I don't get much feeling from 4. I think Bruno and Paul run on 4. They can get quite a lot of feeling from a light steering wheel. It's not a big difference, but personally my preference is 3. Maybe if I get a bit more tired, I might increase this distance to 4.
Now the eye is drawn towards one button on there. It's the big red button, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's not for troublesome GT cars, is it?
That's not when you're getting frustrated. That's to stop the engine, and this is to start. And the other side we have a fuel reset, which is done automatically now, so we don't really use it. But that's also an acknowledge button for any alarms. And then we have a window wiper.
So let's have another look inside the office, as it were. You've got the dash panel on the other side with...
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about that.
So we don't actually use this panel much. A lot of switches on there that we could be using, but a lot of them are pretty self-explanatory. We have night and rain. We won't be using, hopefully, either of those. Night we won't be using at all because it's a 6-hour race through the day, and rain, there's no due forecast for any wet weather, luckily. 0 sensors. These are all things the mechanics can use. The wiper is a secondary wiper here, and we also have things like an override and a start button in case we have any issues with starting the car. That just overrides all the other alarms and maybe limitations that it puts on the car if there's an issue.
The posh screen at the top is the in-car marshal system?
Yep, that is. So that gives you information about red flags, yellow flags, incidents on circuit, and also if there's a checker flag, things like that.
Now we hear a lot, with the cars becoming more complex electronically and electrically, about the so-called reset system, reset and control-alt-delete. What does that involve with you in the car? If something does go wrong, if you've lost power, what do you have to do? What is the sequence you have to take through?
Well, to be honest, in F1 you hear about limitations that the engineers have on the radio. We don't have any limitations, so the engineers can talk us through any sort of procedure we need to do to maybe reset the calibration to the throttle sensor that we've had a few times.
Yep.
So when you travel past 100%, sometimes it'll go into like effectively a limp mode, which won't allow you to have all the power because it's worried that it's going to buzz the engine. So there is an ECU reset you can do, which is a procedure pressing different buttons, holding them for a certain time, and then basically power cycling the car. But that can all be talked to on the radio.
You talk through on it.
Yeah.
Now, just looking here at the seating position, and we can see, I mean, your legs are pretty high in this, aren't they?
Yeah, so this is Paul's seat. It's actually a shell from the other car, which was Hugo, but they're the similar height and similar build, so he can use this. And obviously Hugo's not racing, so I think he'll be fine about letting us borrow. Yeah, like you said, it's a bit strange because your legs are higher than your bum, and nearly as high as your head in theory. So you do sit in a bit of a strange position, but it's quite comfortable when the seat's molded to you.
It's something you have to adapt to, I guess, pretty quickly. So we've got, 16 cars in the prototype class, LMP2s, the Ligier and the Oricas, the pesky Oricas you know so well from Europe. It does seem as if the Ligier has taken a step this year, that Joker process seems to have actually given you a little bit more pace.
Yeah, I think the Joker's done quite a bit. Around the front you might be able to see some of the differences. Previously we had a wing that was underneath here, and sorry if you want to come around.
Come around there?
Yeah. We had a wing that would be tucked in under here, around the corner, and then we had this was higher up. And there's also been changes made to the floor. So there's been a few changes made to make it faster than straight. Obviously it's been successful. At Le Mans it was quite competitive down the straight.
It certainly was. I mean, Le Mans was probably where we've seen the biggest step forward for Ligier, and you guys were competitive. Unfortunate end to the race, but the sister car coming home eventually with a podium. Now that must be pretty bittersweet.
Yeah, it's a bit annoying because we feel maybe we could have been on the podium, if not better, with the post-race sort of dramas that the Oricas had, the people on the podium. So it's just racing. You get it sometimes it turns your way, and you're in the position of the sister car when you get bumped up a few places because of bad luck and misfortune to the other cars.
Last words, really. We're some hours away. You've got one night's sleep now before the 6 hours of Watkins Glen. You're looking for a win.
Yeah, we're looking for a win. We've been due a win a couple of times this year, so hopefully it's a good time.
And you're feeling, I guess, more confident than ever. Your form has taken a big step up. What's that down to? Hard work, I presume, from your point of view?
Good work from the team as well. You need a good team behind you, good engineers that will run through data with you, good teammates that can set good laps that you can have data from. You can learn where you need to improve, see the gaps, and also good at articulating where you need to find the time.
Great stuff. Good luck from everybody. It's going to be one hell of a race tomorrow. 16 cars in the top prototype class at Watkins Glen. Fabulous old school circuit. 100-degree heat. I think you're going to need that drinks bottle, Phil.
Yeah.
Good stuff.